He had lived alone on the ranch for so many years that silence had become part of him. The wind moving across the dry fields, the sound of boots on wooden floors, and the distant calls of cattle were the only voices that stayed with him every day. People in the nearby town knew him as a hardworking cowboy who kept to himself. They respected him, but few truly knew him. After his wife passed away years ago, he had focused only on raising his two daughters. They were still young back then, full of questions and fears, and he had done everything he could to give them a safe life. He learned how to braid their hair, cook simple meals, and comfort them when storms frightened them at night. He rarely talked about his own sadness. Instead, he worked harder, believing that strong hands and steady routines could hold a broken heart together. The ranch sat far from town, surrounded by wide open land that stretched to the horizon. Every morning began before sunrise. He would wake quietly, prepare coffee, and step outside to check the animals while the sky slowly turned from dark blue to gold. Those early moments felt peaceful, but they also reminded him of how alone he was. His daughters changed that feeling. They filled the house with laughter, music, and endless conversations. Even as they grew older, they still ran through the fields with the same excitement they had as children. He watched them carefully, proud of their strength and kindness. They had learned responsibility early, helping with chores and caring for the animals. The ranch was their home, and they loved it deeply. That particular afternoon started like any other. The sun was bright, and the air carried a warm breeze that moved gently through the grass. He had been repairing a broken fence near the edge of the property when he noticed how quiet it felt. Usually, by that time, his daughters would be returning from town after finishing their errands and schoolwork. He wiped his hands on his jeans and looked toward the long dirt road that led to the ranch. At first, he saw nothing but dust and sunlight. Then slowly, 3 figures appeared in the distance. He paused, narrowing his eyes. The girls were walking side by side, but there was someone else with them. A third figure walked slightly behind, moving carefully, almost cautiously. As they came closer, he could see her more clearly. She was a young Apache woman with long, dark hair tied loosely behind her back. Her clothes were simple, and she carried only a small bag over her shoulder. There was something strong about the way she walked, even though she looked tired. Her eyes moved across the land quietly, taking in every detail. The daughters ran ahead once they saw him watching. "Dad!" one of them called, her voice full of excitement. "We met someone in town. She needed help." He listened carefully, his expression calm but serious. He was used to unexpected situations, but bringing a stranger home was not something that happened often. The Apache woman stopped a few steps away, giving him respectful space. She nodded slightly, her posture showing both confidence and caution. She introduced herself in a soft voice, explaining that she had been traveling for some time, looking for work and a place to start again. The cowboy crossed his arms, thinking carefully. Life on the ranch was private and simple. He had built that quiet world to protect his daughters and himself from complications. Letting someone new into it felt like opening a door he had kept closed for years. His daughters spoke quickly, telling him how they had met her near the town store. She had been asking about ranch work and had nowhere safe to stay that night. They said she seemed honest and kind. They insisted she only needed a temporary place. He watched the woman silently for a moment. She did not beg or push for sympathy. She stood patiently, meeting his gaze with quiet dignity. That impressed him more than words. He remembered times in his own past when strangers had offered help without expecting anything in return. Those memories softened his hesitation. After a long pause, he nodded slowly. "You can stay a few days," he said finally, his voice steady. "We'll see how things go." Relief filled his daughters' faces immediately. The Apache woman thanked him sincerely, her gratitude simple and genuine. As they walked toward the house together, he noticed how the energy around him felt different. The ranch, usually quiet, now carried a sense of curiosity and change. Inside, the home was modest but warm. Wooden walls held memories of years gone by, and sunlight poured through wide windows. The daughters showed her around eagerly, explaining where everything was while she listened carefully. He stood back, observing. Something about her presence felt calm rather than disruptive. She moved with respect, careful not to intrude or take up too much space. That evening, they shared a simple dinner. Conversation flowed easily between the daughters and the guest, while he listened more than he spoke. He noticed how she asked thoughtful questions, showing interest in their lives and the ranch itself. Later, as he stepped outside alone, he looked across the fields under the fading light. Change had arrived without warning, carried by his daughter's kindness. He felt both uneasy and curious. Part of him worried about the unknown. Another part felt something he had not allowed himself to feel in years, hope. Behind him, laughter echoed softly from the house, blending with the evening wind. The ranch no longer felt as silent as it had that morning. He didn't realize it yet, but that small decision, letting a stranger stay, would slowly reshape his life, his home, and the meaning of family in ways he had never expected. The next morning began before sunrise, just like every other day on the ranch. The cowboy woke quietly, expecting the usual stillness of early morning. He poured himself a cup of coffee and stepped outside, breathing in the cool air as the sky slowly turned lighter. For a moment, he almost forgot that someone new was staying under his roof. Then he heard soft footsteps behind him. The Apache woman walked toward the barn, already awake and dressed for work. She nodded respectfully when she saw him, not saying much. He watched silently as she moved toward the horses, her steps confident but calm. She did not wait for instructions or stand around unsure of what to do. Instead, she began helping as if she had known the routine for years. That surprised him. Many people thought ranch work was easy until they tried it. But she moved naturally, checking the animals carefully and speaking to them in a quiet voice. The horses responded well to her, standing calmly as she brushed them and adjusted their reins. The cowboy finished his coffee and joined her. For a few minutes they worked side by side without speaking. The silence felt comfortable rather than awkward. Finally, he asked how she had learned to handle horses so well. She explained simply that she grew up around animals and had spent time helping relatives who worked with livestock. Her words were short but honest. She did not try to impress him or exaggerate her experience. He nodded, impressed but careful not to show too much emotion. When the daughters woke up later, they were excited to see her already working. They laughed and joked together, bringing a new energy into the morning routine. Breakfast felt different that day. The table was louder, filled with stories and small moments of joy that had been missing for a long time. As the days passed, she continued helping around the ranch without needing to be asked. She repaired small things, cleaned tools, and organized supplies that had been left messy for months. She respected the cowboy's space and never tried to change things without permission. He found himself watching her often, noticing the way she treated every task with care. There was no rush, no complaints, only steady effort. The daughters quickly grew close to her. They shared stories, laughed together, and asked questions about her culture and traditions. She taught them small skills, like how to braid leather or prepare simple food in a traditional way. The house felt warmer, filled with conversations that lasted long into the evening. At first, the cowboy tried to keep his distance. He told himself she was only staying temporarily. He focused on work and avoided long conversations, afraid of becoming too comfortable. But little by little, that distance began to fade. One afternoon, while repairing a fence together, she thanked him again for allowing her to stay. He shrugged, saying it was nothing special. She smiled slightly, explaining that kindness was never small when someone truly needed it. Her words stayed with him long after the conversation ended. He noticed how the ranch seemed more alive. The daughters woke earlier, excited to help. Meals felt less quiet. Even the animals seemed calmer, responding to the peaceful rhythm she brought. Still, not everything felt easy. When he went into town, he sensed people watching him more closely than usual. A few neighbors asked questions about the new woman staying at his ranch. Some sounded curious, while others spoke with doubt. He answered politely but avoided long explanations. He had lived long enough to know that people often judged what they did not understand. One evening, as they sat outside watching the sunset, she shared more about her past. She spoke slowly, choosing her words carefully. She had left behind a difficult life, searching for independence and a place where she could work honestly. She did not speak with anger or bitterness, only quiet determination. The cowboy listened without interrupting. He recognized the strength it took to start over alone. It reminded him of his own journey after loss, though he rarely spoke about it. For the first time in years, he felt comfortable sharing a small part of his story. He told her about his wife and how the ranch had become both a refuge and a reminder of what he had lost. She listened patiently, offering understanding without trying to fix anything. That simple exchange created a deeper connection between them. The daughters noticed the change. They saw their father smiling more often and joining conversations instead of standing quietly in the background. They teased him gently, enjoying the new atmosphere in the house. Yet despite the growing comfort, he still wondered how long she would stay. Change always brought uncertainty, and he was not used to relying on anyone outside his family. One afternoon, a sudden storm rolled across the land. Strong winds shook the barn doors, and rain poured heavily across the fields. Everyone worked together to secure the animals and protect the equipment. She moved quickly and confidently, helping without hesitation. Afterward, as they stood under the shelter watching the rain slow down, he realized something important. She was no longer just a guest helping out. She had become part of the daily rhythm of the ranch. That realization surprised him more than anything else. Later that night, while the daughters laughed over stories at the table, he watched quietly from his chair. The house felt full, not crowded, but alive in a way he had almost forgotten was possible. He knew challenges might come, people in town might continue to talk. The future remained uncertain. But for the first time since she arrived, he stopped thinking about when she might leave. Instead, he wondered what life would look like if she stayed. Outside, the stars filled the sky above the ranch, shining brightly over a home that was slowly changing. The cowboy sat quietly, listening to the sound of laughter inside, realizing that sometimes the strongest changes happen not through big events, but through small, steady moments that slowly reshape a person's heart. The ranch continued to settle into a new rhythm as the days turned into weeks. What once felt temporary now seemed natural. The Apache woman moved through the ranch like she had always belonged there. She worked hard, spoke kindly, and treated everyone with respect. The daughters admired her deeply, and the cowboy found himself trusting her more with each passing day. Still, life rarely stayed peaceful for long. One morning, the cowboy rode into town to pick up supplies. He tied his horse outside the general store and stepped inside, expecting nothing more than a quick visit. But he quickly noticed the quiet conversations that stopped when he entered. A few people nodded politely, but others watched him closely. He felt something shift in the air. While he gathered what he needed, a local rancher approached him. The man spoke casually at first, but soon began asking questions about the Apache woman staying at his ranch. His tone sounded polite, but there was doubt behind his words. He mentioned rumors, small stories being passed around town about her past. None of them were clear or proven, but they created unease. The cowboy listened calmly, not reacting immediately. He had lived long enough to know that rumors often grew from misunderstandings. Still, the conversation stayed with him as he rode back home. When he arrived, he found the daughters and the Apache woman working together near the barn, laughing as they finished feeding the animals. The peaceful scene made the town's gossip feel distant, almost unimportant. Yet he couldn't completely ignore what he had heard. That evening, he mentioned the situation carefully. He did not accuse her or question her directly. Instead, he explained that some people in town were talking and he wanted to hear her thoughts. She listened quietly, her expression calm but thoughtful. She explained that starting over often meant leaving behind people who misunderstood her choices. She did not seem angry about the rumors, only tired of being judged without being known. Her honesty reassured him, but the situation created tension he could not ignore. Over the next few days, he noticed subtle changes. Some neighbors stopped waving when they passed by. A delivery was delayed without explanation. Even small things began to feel heavier. The daughters sensed it too. They asked their father why people seemed different. He told them not to worry, but they could see the concern in his eyes. One afternoon, a neighbor came to the ranch unannounced. The conversation started politely but soon turned uncomfortable. The neighbor warned him that allowing a stranger to stay might bring trouble. He spoke about protecting reputation and keeping things simple. The cowboy listened patiently, then responded firmly but respectfully. He explained that she had done nothing wrong and had only helped the ranch. His voice remained calm, but his decision was clear. After the neighbor left, the house felt quiet again. Later that evening, the Apache woman approached him. She said she did not want to cause problems for his family. If her presence created too much difficulty, she was willing to leave. Her words caught him off guard. The daughters immediately protested, saying she had become part of their family. Their voices carried emotion, showing how much they cared. The cowboy remained silent for a moment, thinking deeply. He realized that fear of change had shaped many of his choices in the past. After losing his wife, he had closed himself off to avoid more pain. Now he faced a similar moment, a choice between protecting comfort or standing by someone he believed deserved fairness. He looked at her and spoke honestly. He told her she was not a problem and that she did not need to leave because of rumors. He said the ranch was her home as long as she wanted to stay. Relief filled the room and the daughters smiled through tears. From that moment, something shifted inside him. He was no longer just offering temporary help. He was choosing trust. The following days brought new challenges. A small disagreement in town grew into a larger discussion, and some people questioned his decision openly. Instead of avoiding the situation, he attended a local gathering where he calmly explained his perspective. He did not argue or raise his voice. He simply shared what he had seen, her hard work, her kindness, and the positive changes she brought to the ranch. His steady confidence surprised many people. They were used to him staying quiet, but now he spoke with clarity. Slowly, the tension began to ease. Back at the ranch, life continued. They worked together repairing fences, preparing food, and caring for animals. The cowboy noticed how much stronger the family felt when they supported one another. One evening, as the sun set across the fields, he realized that trust required courage. It meant accepting uncertainty and standing firm even when others doubted. The Apache woman also changed during this time. She seemed more relaxed, smiling more often and sharing stories from her past with the daughters. The bond between them grew deeper, based on shared experiences and mutual respect. The cowboy found himself looking forward to conversations he once would have avoided. He noticed how her presence brought balance to the house, blending strength with calm understanding. Though challenges remained, he felt proud of the choice he had made. He had allowed himself to step beyond fear and stand by someone who had proven her character through actions rather than words. As night fell, they sat together outside under the stars, talking quietly about the future. The ranch felt peaceful again, not because problems had disappeared, but because they faced them together. For the first time in a long while, he realized that trust was not a weakness. It was a strength that allowed people to grow, to heal, and to build something meaningful. And deep inside, he knew this was only the beginning of a change that would shape all of their lives. Life on the ranch began to feel steady again after the tension with the town slowly faded. The days moved forward with a quiet rhythm, filled with work, shared meals, and long evenings under the wide open sky. The cowboy noticed how much had changed since the Apache woman first arrived. The house no longer felt empty. Laughter came easily, and even small moments carried warmth. He woke one morning before sunrise and stepped outside as usual. The sky was soft with early light, and the air felt calm. From across the yard, he saw her already working near the barn, brushing one of the horses slowly and speaking to it in a gentle voice. He paused, watching without interrupting. There was something peaceful about the way she moved, something that made the ranch feel balanced. For years, he had carried everything alone, believing that strength meant handling problems by himself. Now he realized how different life felt when responsibilities were shared. The daughters were happier too. They had grown closer to her, seeing her as both a friend and a guide. She listened to them carefully, offering advice when they asked and encouraging them to stay confident in who they were. He could see their trust in her, and that trust helped him relax in ways he had not expected. One afternoon, while repairing tools together, she asked him about the early years of the ranch. He hesitated at first. Talking about the past still felt heavy. But something about her calm presence made it easier. He told her about the struggles he faced when he first started, about building the ranch piece by piece, and about how his wife had supported him through every challenge. Speaking those memories aloud brought both sadness and comfort. Instead of feeling overwhelmed, he felt understood. She listened quietly, never interrupting, allowing him space to share at his own pace. When he finished, she simply nodded and thanked him for trusting her with something so personal. That moment stayed with him long after the conversation ended. As weeks passed, the community slowly began to change its attitude. A few neighbors stopped by the ranch again, curious to see how things were going. They noticed how well she worked and how respectfully she treated everyone. Small acts of kindness, Helping a neighbor repair a broken gate or caring for an injured animal helped shift people's opinions. The cowboy watched this transformation with quiet relief. He never wanted conflict with the town. Seeing acceptance grow felt like a heavy weight lifting from his shoulders. One evening, they attended a small local gathering together. It was the first time he had chosen to bring her openly into a public setting. He felt nervous at first, unsure how others would react. But as the evening continued, conversations flowed naturally. People asked about ranch work, shared stories, and laughed together. He noticed how confident she remained, respectful but strong, never trying too hard to fit in yet making genuine connections. The daughters stayed close to her, proud to introduce her as part of their family. That word, family, echoed in his mind. Later that night, as they rode home under the stars, he felt a deep sense of calm. The fear he once carried about change seemed smaller now. Instead of disrupting his life, this new connection had strengthened it. Back at the ranch, they sat outside watching the sky grow darker. The daughters talked excitedly about the evening while he listened quietly. He realized he was smiling without effort. Over time, he began sharing more of himself, not only memories, but also hopes for the future. He spoke about wanting the ranch to continue growing, about teaching his daughters everything they needed to know, and about finding peace after years of feeling lost. She shared her own dreams too. She wanted stability, meaningful work, and a place where she felt truly accepted. Hearing her speak openly made him understand how much courage it took to start over. Their bond grew slowly, built on respect rather than sudden emotion. It showed in small ways, sharing morning coffee, working side by side without needing many words, and trusting each other with responsibilities. The daughters noticed the change before anyone else. They teased him gently, saying he laughed more often and seemed lighter. He pretended not to hear, but deep down he knew they were right. One afternoon, a storm passed across the land, leaving the air fresh and cool. After securing the animals, they stood together watching the clouds move away. The moment felt peaceful, filled with quiet understanding. He realized that healing did not come through dramatic events, but through steady, simple moments. Each day brought small steps forward, slowly rebuilding parts of himself he thought were gone forever. As the seasons changed, the ranch began preparing for new projects. They worked together planning improvements, sharing ideas openly. He no longer felt like the sole decision-maker. Instead, he valued her perspective and welcomed collaboration. That sense of partnership surprised him. For years, he had believed independence meant strength. Now he understood that true strength could also mean allowing others to stand beside you. One evening, as the sun set across the fields, he watched his daughters laughing with her near the barn. The scene filled him with gratitude. What had begun as a simple act of kindness had turned into something far deeper. He realized he no longer thought of her as a guest or even just a helper. She had become part of the heart of the ranch, shaping its future alongside them. Standing there, he felt a quiet certainty. The past had shaped him, but it no longer controlled him. Opening his heart again had not weakened him, it had allowed him to grow. The stars appeared slowly overhead as night settled across the land. Inside the house, warm light shone through the windows, inviting and alive. For the first time in many years, he felt ready to embrace whatever came next, knowing that healing was not about forgetting the past, but about allowing new connections to bring hope back into life. The seasons continued to change, and with each passing week the ranch felt more alive than it had in years. What began as a temporary visit had slowly grown into something deeper, something none of them had planned, but all of them quietly accepted. The cowboy often stood outside in the early morning, watching the sun rise over the fields, thinking about how much his life had changed without him even realizing it. He used to wake up feeling the weight of silence. Now, when he stepped into the kitchen, he heard soft conversation, the sound of coffee being poured, and sometimes laughter before the day had even begun. The Apache woman had become part of the daily rhythm, not through grand gestures, but through small, consistent acts of care and effort. She helped organize the ranch work, bringing new ideas that made tasks easier without changing the spirit of the place. The daughters admired her creativity and patience. They spent long afternoons learning new skills from her, whether it was traditional crafts or simply ways to stay calm during difficult moments. The cowboy noticed how confident his daughters had become. They spoke more openly, smiled more often, and seemed proud of the home they shared. Seeing them happy gave him a quiet sense of peace. One afternoon, while repairing a section of fence together, he found himself reflecting on the past. He remembered the years when he felt stuck in routine, moving through each day without truly feeling present. Losing his wife had left a space in his heart that he believed could never be filled. But now he understood that healing did not mean replacing what was lost. It meant allowing new connections to grow alongside old memories. He watched as the Apache woman guided one of the younger horses gently, speaking to it with patience. The animal trusted her completely, responding to her calm energy. He realized that trust was something she built slowly, step by step, just as she had done with his family. Later that evening, the daughters suggested having a small celebration on the ranch. Nothing big, just a simple gathering to thank the neighbors who had supported them. The cowboy agreed, though he felt slightly nervous about hosting others again after so many years of keeping to himself. Preparing for the gathering brought everyone closer. They cleaned the barn, set up tables outside, and cooked together. Laughter filled the air as they worked side by side. The Apache woman introduced new recipes, blending her traditions with the cowboys' familiar meals, creating something unique. When the evening arrived, neighbors slowly began to appear. Some came out of curiosity, others out of genuine friendship. The cowboy watched carefully, unsure how the atmosphere would feel. But as conversations started and stories were shared, the tension he once feared never appeared. People noticed the warmth of the ranch and the strong bond between its members. The Apache woman greeted everyone respectfully, listening more than speaking, allowing others to feel comfortable around her. As the night continued, music played softly and laughter echoed across the fields. The cowboy stood quietly for a moment, taking everything in. He realized how far they had come from the uncertainty of her first arrival. The daughters danced together, pulling both him and her into the circle. At first he felt awkward, but soon he found himself laughing, something he had not done freely in a long time. Later, as the guests began leaving, one of the older neighbors stopped to speak with him privately. The neighbor admitted that he had been unsure at first, but now saw how positive the change had been for the ranch. Hearing those words brought unexpected relief. After everyone left, the four of them sat outside under the stars. The air felt calm and full of quiet satisfaction. No one spoke for a while, they simply enjoyed the moment together. Finally, the cowboy looked at her and thanked her for everything she had brought into their lives. She smiled gently, saying that they had given her something just as important, a place where she felt truly accepted. The daughters leaned against their father, tired but happy. He realized that family could grow in unexpected ways. It was not always defined by blood or history. Sometimes it began with kindness, patience, and the courage to welcome someone new. In the following weeks, the ranch continued to thrive. They worked together planning future improvements, dreaming about new projects, and building a life that felt strong and balanced. The cowboy no longer feared change. Instead, he embraced it as part of growth. One morning, as he watched the sunrise with her beside him, he felt a sense of calm he had not known for years. The loneliness that once filled his days had been replaced by connection and purpose. He understood that the journey had not been about finding something he was missing. It had been about allowing himself to open up again, to trust, and to believe that life could still surprise him. The ranch stood strong against the horizon, filled with memories of the past and hope for the future. Together, they had created something meaningful, not through dramatic moments, but through steady care and shared effort. As the day began, he felt grateful for the simple truth that sometimes the greatest changes come quietly, carried by unexpected kindness and the willingness to let someone become part of your story.